I didn't plan to go out that night. It had been raining since the afternoon. One of those slow gray drizzles that makes the world feel heavier, older, lonelier. By the time I clocked out of my double shift at the distribution center, my back throbbed and my hands were split open from the dry air. I was running on fumes. The only thing I'd eaten since noon was a vending machine burrito that tasted like cardboard. I wasn't ready to go home to my apartment's silence. The idea of sitting alone in the dark felt worse than being out in the rain. So I drove the long way through San Amore, a quiet working-class suburb just outside Portland. My wipers dragged across the windshield, smearing the orange glow of the streetlights until it looked like the whole town was melting. That's when I saw it, the Jollibee sign. Bright red and yellow in the fog, glowing like a lighthouse, or maybe like a warning flare. Something about the sight gave me a strange comfort, pulling at a memory. My mom used to bring home Jollibee chicken and spaghetti when life was going okay. That warmth, that sweetness of pineapple juice, it felt like a tiny piece of childhood. So I pulled in. The lot was almost empty. 3 cars, that's all. I remember that number so clearly, like it's burned into my brain. The rain felt colder as I jogged to the door, but inside was all warmth and fried sugar air. The restaurant looked hollow. A woman mopped near the soda machine, her motions slow, distracted. Behind the counter, a teenage cashier with streaked blonde hair gave me a tired smile. And then there was him, a man sitting in the far corner by the windows. He was tall, maybe late 40s, wearing a dark green coat too big for him. On his head was a knitted hat with a strange bulge, like it had an empty dome inside. At first I thought maybe headphones or just a weird fashion choice. But no, it looked wrong. Too hollow. He wasn't eating. He wasn't drinking. He didn't even pretend to look at his phone. He just sat there with both palms pressed flat against the table, staring at nothing, like he was waiting. I ordered my Chicken Joy meal and sat diagonally across the room from him. I didn't want to stare, but it was impossible not to notice. His stillness wasn't natural. People fidget. They sip their drinks. They blink. He didn't. Not once. Even the mop lady avoided him. She glanced once, then quickly turned her head like she had seen something she wished she hadn't. Minutes passed. The cashier brought my tray. I unwrapped my food, but my appetite was gone. That's when he moved. He stood up slowly. His arms hung too low at his sides, heavy like weights. Each step toward the restroom hallway looked deliberate, rehearsed, like he was counting them in his head. He paused at the entrance and stood still for 15 seconds. Not looking around, not adjusting his coat, just frozen like a shadow waiting to detach itself. Then he disappeared down the hall. The air in the restaurant changed instantly. I can't explain it better than to say it felt wrong. The kind of silence that makes your skin tighten. Even the girl at the register looked up from her phone, uneasy. The mop stopped moving. Then it happened. A sharp metallic bang echoed down the hallway, followed by a wet splatter. Then silence, an awful, heavy silence. And then came the screaming. The cashier screamed first, high and piercing. The mop lady dropped the handle, stumbling back into the wall, whispering, "Oh God, oh God." I didn't scream. I froze. My mind tried to make sense of it, convincing myself it was a tray or a machine backfiring, anything but what I knew it was. Then I saw the blood. It slid out from the hallway in a long, thick smear, crawling across the beige tiles like it was alive. A moment later, his body slumped halfway into view. Face down, one arm twisted wrong under him. His hat rolled away and something glistened near his head. I dropped my fork. My chest locked up. The manager eventually came out, pale as paper, locking the doors and herding us to the far side of the room until the cops arrived. The minutes stretched like hours. The blood kept spreading across the floor, creeping closer to my shoes. When the officers questioned me, I told them everything. The way he sat still, the pause at the hallway, how it felt like the whole room knew something was about to happen before it did. One officer, Reyes, asked twice if I saw anyone else approach him. I said no. She frowned and kept writing. Later, I overheard them say they found a note in his coat pocket, typed one paragraph. It ended with a line that still rattles around my skull. I wanted it to be seen. His name was Lucas Moran. No obituary, no family to claim him. Just one man, one rainy night, and me, sitting there helpless. I wish I could say I forgot about him, but I didn't. I see him everywhere now. In crowded food courts, in empty bus stations, a man sitting alone, palms pressed flat to the table, waiting for something I can't stop. And every time I hear a loud bang in a public place, I flinch, waiting for the blood to follow. My name's Ethan Russell. I was 19 last summer when everything happened. I didn't think a fast food stop could change my life, but it did. And the scar across my back reminds me every single day. Tessa, my girlfriend, and I had planned a long road trip from our small Indiana town down to her grandparents' house in Mississippi. 10 hours of highway driving, podcasts, and bad gas station snacks. It wasn't supposed to be dangerous, just boring. But boring would have been a blessing. We'd been on the road for about 5 hours. The July sun was brutal, pressing down on the roof of the car, making the highway shimmer. I kept guzzling water from the plastic jug we'd bought that morning, which meant frequent bathroom stops. Tessa complained at first, but she always used those breaks to sneak cigarettes. She hated people seeing her smoke, said it made her look trashy, so she'd stand just far enough from the car, pretending not to care. That day we pulled off I-55 into one of those rest plazas that all look the same, a gas station, a gift shop, and a Jollibee. I'd never eaten there before, and I'd heard about their spaghetti and fried chicken online. Tessa wrinkled her nose. She preferred Chick-fil-A, but I convinced her to give it a shot. That decision changed everything. The Jollibee was nearly empty when we walked in. Just one young couple with a toddler and an old man sitting alone by the window. The fluorescent lights hummed above us, too bright, too sterile. The smell of grease clung to the air. We ordered chicken joy for me, burger steak for Tessa, and sat in a booth near the glass. We were halfway through our food when I noticed him. He came out of nowhere, sliding into the booth directly beside ours. Not across, not diagonal, right beside us, too close. "Hey there," he said, smiling. The smile didn't reach his eyes. His voice sounded wrong, like a bad impression of friendliness. "You two from around here?" Tessa answered before I could stop her. "Nah, we're just driving through." "Where to?" His eyes locked onto her, unblinking. "Mississippi, long drive," she said casually. "Family there?" I stayed silent. My gut tightened. The man was older, maybe mid-50s, with a patchy gray beard and sunken cheeks. His navy flannel shirt was faded and rolled up at the sleeves. His arms were covered in small scabs and bruises, like he'd been clawing through brush or worse. His boots were untied, caked in mud. His jeans were stiff with dried stains. Mud maybe, but I couldn't shake the thought it was something darker. He had no food, no drink, no bag, no wallet, just empty hands resting flat on the table. "You traveling alone?" I asked finally, my voice low. His eyes lingered on me far too long before he answered. "Always." The way he said it made my skin crawl. We left as soon as we could without making a scene. Tessa was brushing crumbs off her lap when I turned the ignition. "Babe, what's wrong?" she asked. "That guy. He wasn't right. Yeah, but maybe he's just lonely." "No. No food, no drink, no keys. Who sits in Jollibee like that?" She didn't answer. Neither of us wanted to think about it anymore. But 10 minutes later, I looked in the rearview mirror and froze. A white GMC pickup truck was following us. Behind the wheel was the same man. Tessa noticed my grip tighten on the wheel. "What?" I pointed. "That's him." "That's the guy." "No way. He didn't even have keys." "Then how the hell is he driving behind us?" I pressed the gas. 70, then 80. He kept up. I switched lanes, took random exits. Every time he followed. My pulse hammered in my ears. At a Chevron station, I pulled in, pretending to need gas. He followed, parked across the lot, headlights glaring at us. That was the moment I knew he wasn't just some lonely drifter. He was hunting us. Tessa suggested stopping at another rest area to test him. It was risky, but if we didn't get proof, who would believe us? We pulled into a rest stop as the sun dipped low, painting everything gold. 2 minutes later, the white GMC pulled in and parked 3 spots away. Engine still running. I grabbed the tire iron from under my seat. "Ethan," Tessa whispered, pale. "Don't. I'm not waiting for him to come to us." I walked toward his truck. He stepped out slowly, the same flannel, the same unnatural smile. "You sure you want to do this, son?" he said, almost laughing. "You've been following us for over an hour," I snapped. "Why?" He reached to his belt and pulled out a hunting knife. The blade caught the last of the sunlight. "No reason," he said. "Just seemed like a fun day." Then he lunged. I swung the tire iron, catching his shoulder. The knife slashed across my back, hot, sharp agony, but adrenaline carried me. I tackled him hard. We hit the pavement. I swung again and again until his head cracked against the concrete and he stopped moving. Blood ran hot down my spine. My hands shook. "Tessa!" I screamed. She bolted from the car with her phone. We sped to the hospital. I bled all over her back seat, every bump making me scream. The doctors said I was lucky. The blade missed anything major. A few more seconds and he could have gutted me. The police found him unconscious at the rest area. No ID, no plates on the GMC. He wasn't in any system. They said he might have been living out of that truck for months. The creepiest part. In his glove box, they found a folded Polaroid photo. A young couple sitting outside a Jollibee, smiling. It wasn't us, but it looked just like us. I still wonder how long he'd been waiting, watching, choosing. My name is Isabel. I'm 17, and for a long time, Jollibee used to be one of my happiest places. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, my friends and I had a ritual. We'd gather in Amber's garage, roll out our Target yoga mats, and follow YouTube workout videos. It was never serious. Half the time, we just laughed at each other's clumsy poses. But after sweating it out for an hour, we always rewarded ourselves the same way. A short drive to the Jollibee on Marlton Avenue. It wasn't just about the food. Sure, I loved their chicken nuggets with gravy and that pineapple quencher, but it was more the comfort of routine. The 4 of us, me, Amber, Rachel, and Leah, crowded into our usual corner booth, gossiping, wiping sweat off our foreheads, laughing too loud. Miss Cynthia, the cheerful cashier, always greeted us by name. She even started punching in our orders before we reached the counter. It felt safe, familiar. But then he started working there. We never learned his real name. No name tag, no casual "hi, welcome," like the others. He just appeared one day behind the counter. Tall, gaunt, pale, almost gray skin. His hairline was already receding, even though he couldn't have been more than mid-20s. And his eyes, too big, bulging, wet-looking, like a frog's. That's what we ended up calling him, behind his back. Froggy. The first time I really noticed him was when my card was processing at the register. He was near the fryer, his back stiff and perfectly straight. He didn't move, didn't fidget like the other employees, just stood like a statue. I caught myself staring, trying to place why he seemed so wrong. And then, suddenly, he spun around in one single jerky motion. His giant eyes locked directly onto mine. I flinched so hard I almost dropped my wallet. Even when I looked away, I could feel him still staring. Later, Rachel whispered as we sat down with our trays. "Did you see that guy watching us?" "You noticed too?" I asked. "Yeah. When I was filling my Coke, he was just standing there looking at me. Didn't even try to hide it." "Same," Leah muttered. I grabbed ketchup and he was blocking the napkins, just standing there. Didn't move until I left. We laughed it off nervously, calling him Froggy like a dumb inside joke. But the truth was, we all felt the same unease. For weeks, nothing happened. He just lingered, watching, moving in quick, unnatural bursts like his body didn't quite sync with the rest of the world. And his smile, when he did smile, looked wrong. Too stiff, too practiced, like he was copying an expression he'd seen on TV. Leah once whispered that he looked like he was rehearsing how humans smiled. We laughed at that too, but not for long. Then came that Friday. It was a teacher workday, so we had no school. We finished yoga earlier than usual, and Amber drove us in her mom's minivan to Jollibee just before noon. The parking lot was almost empty. Inside, only one man sat by the window eating alone, and at the register, no Miss Cynthia, just him, Froggy. We froze for a second, exchanging glances, but what were we supposed to do? Walk out because the cashier creeped us out? So we stepped up. I ordered my usual 10-piece nuggets with fries and a pineapple quencher. Froggy typed it in without saying a word. His eyes never left mine, not even to glance at the screen. His silence was so thick it made my skin prickle. Amber tried to break it. Where's Miss Cynthia today? Off, he rasped. The word sounded like it scraped its way out of his throat. We paid quickly and sat down, jittery. Froggy disappeared into the back. And then, nothing. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Not a single order was called. No fryer noises, no timers, no clatter, just silence from behind the counter. Why is it taking so long? Leah muttered. They're not even busy, Rachel said, checking her phone. Amber shifted uncomfortably. Maybe we should just go. Just then, Froggy returned, carrying our trays. He set them down one by one. His hands lingered too long when he pushed mine toward me. His bulging eyes never blinked. He stared until I looked away. We sat in tense silence. I unwrapped my nuggets, trying to shake the crawling feeling under my skin. I dipped one into the gravy, then stopped. Something was wrong. At first, I thought it was mayonnaise. Some kind of sauce had leaked over the nuggets, but it didn't smell like mayo. It didn't smell like anything I recognized. Stringy, yellowish, almost gelatinous. What the hell is that? Rachel leaned over, her face twisting. I don't know, I whispered. My hands shook as I set the box down. Amber's face went pale. That's not sauce. What do you mean? Her voice dropped to a panicked whisper. He put something on it. Froggy put something on your food. Leah stood up so fast her chair screeched across the floor. I'm gonna puke. It hit me then. The silence. The long wait. No other customers, just us. My stomach lurched. I shoved the tray away and grabbed my bag. We need to go. Now we rushed outside, barely speaking. My heart pounded so loud it drowned out the sound of the car doors slamming. As Amber pulled out, I risked one look back. Through the kitchen window, Froggy stood watching. His hands pressed against the glass, his face blank, his frog eyes unblinking. We didn't report it. We couldn't. What would we even say? We think some creepy guy at Jollibee put something on our nuggets. We had no photos, no proof, just fear. So we never went back. Amber started driving us to a Wendy's in another town. It wasn't the same, but at least it felt safe. 2 weeks later, my phone buzzed. It was Olivia, the flaky friend who rarely joined yoga. Hey, did something happen at the Jollibee on Marlton? I froze. Why? I texted. She sent back a voice message, her tone nervous. I went today and the cops were there. The lady at the counter said there was a staff incident, but I swear I saw that pale guy, the one with the eyes, in the back of a police car. My stomach twisted. I didn't ask for details. I didn't want to know. To this day, I haven't eaten fast food again. I can't even look at nuggets without feeling my throat close. And sometimes, late at night, I picture him in my head. Those eyes, that wrong, rehearsed smile, his hands pressed against the glass, watching. I was 19 when I started working nights at Jollibee. College wasn't working out for me. My grades tanked, money was running dry, and I couldn't stand the lectures anymore. So I dropped out. My mom was furious, but I told her I'd figure it out. The truth was, I just needed cash, fast. Jollibee was the only place hiring on short notice. They offered me the night shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. It wasn't glamorous, but the pay was a little better than daytime, and I told myself it was temporary. A stepping stone. just until I figured out what the hell to do with my life. The first few weeks were quiet. The store was nearly empty most nights. A couple of graveyard shift workers from the gas station across the street, the occasional drunk stumbling in after the bars closed. Sometimes not a single customer for hours. But there was one man who came in almost every night. We never learned his real name. All of us just called him Bathrobe Benny. That's because every time he came in, no matter the weather, he wore the same thing, a stained white bathrobe, slippers that slapped against the tile, and nothing else. No pants, no shirt. Just the robe tied loosely around his sagging chest. The first time I saw him, it was around 2 a.m. The bell above the door jingled, and in shuffled this pale, stringy-haired man who looked like he hadn't showered in weeks. His eyes darted side to side, and he smiled at me with yellow teeth. I remember his voice, high-pitched and sing-songy like a children's TV host. "Chicken Joy," he said, dragging the word out. 6 pieces, extra gravy. I like lots of gravy. I rang him up, trying not to make eye contact. He stood uncomfortably close, humming to himself while I swiped his crumpled bills. When I handed him the food, he said, "You smell like soap." Ivory soap. My mama used to use that. Then he winked. I forced a laugh and walked into the kitchen to hide until he left. After that, he became routine. Almost every night between 1 and 3 a.m., Bathrobe Benny showed up. Always ordered Chicken Joy. Always lingered too long at the counter, staring at us. Sometimes he'd sit in the corner booth for an hour, just sipping gravy with a spoon. He never looked tired. He never blinked enough. And sometimes, when the store was empty, he talked to us. "Do you ever wonder," he asked me once, "what it's like to be cooked alive? Like a chicken in the fryer?" I think about it. I think about it all the time. I laughed nervously, pretending I didn't hear him. Another time, he leaned across the counter and whispered, "I like how you cut the fries. Nice and straight, neat, precise. I'd like to see what else you can cut." His eyes dropped to the knife we used for slicing pies. I told my manager, but she brushed it off. "He's harmless," she said. "He's a regular. Don't antagonize him. Just give him his food." So we did. Every night. We gave him his food. We let him linger. We endured his weird comments, his stares, his humming, until the night it went too far. It was mid-November, cold and rainy. The store was empty except for me and Carla, another night shift worker. She was in the back mopping while I wiped down the counter. At exactly 2:17 a.m., the bell jingled. Bathrobe Benny shuffled in, water dripping from his hair. His slippers slapped against the floor, leaving wet prints. His robe was looser than usual, hanging open to reveal his pale chest. "Chicken Joy," he said softly. "Extra gravy." I rang him up. My hands shook, but I tried to act normal. Carla stayed in the back, pretending not to notice him. When I turned to grab the box of chicken, I realized something. He hadn't handed me money. When I looked back, he was leaning over the counter. His face was inches from mine. His breath smelled sour like spoiled milk. "You smell like soap again," he whispered. "But underneath, you smell like blood." I froze. My mouth went dry. Then he reached out fast and grabbed my wrist. His fingers were cold and clammy, his nails digging into my skin. "I want to know what you taste like," he said. Carla screamed from the back. "Let her go!" She came running with the mop, swinging it at him. He let go and stumbled backward, laughing high and shrill. "Feisty little chicks," he giggled. "Feisty." We both ran to the office, locked the door, and called the cops. They showed up 20 minutes later. By then, Bathrobe Benny was gone. They found his slippers, though. One lay in the parking lot, soaked in rain. The other was near the dumpster, smeared with something dark. They never caught him. For weeks after, I couldn't sleep without seeing his face, his yellow teeth, his bulging eyes, the way he whispered blood like it was the sweetest word he'd ever known. I quit Jollibee soon after. I told my mom I was looking for better hours, but the truth is, I couldn't stand that store anymore. Couldn't stand the smell of fried chicken, the sound of the fryer, the sight of gravy. I used to work at Jollibee when I was 21. At first, I thought it would just be a paycheck. Easy hours, free meals, and a staff that seemed friendly enough. But by the time I quit 6 months later, I swore I'd never set foot in that building again. Because something in that store wasn't right. It started small. Things only employees noticed. The fryer timers would go off in the middle of the night, even when no food was dropped in. Bags of frozen chicken would thaw too fast, dripping a reddish fluid that didn't quite look like blood but didn't look like water either. And the Jollibee mascot costume, the one locked in the supply closet, sometimes looked like it had shifted positions between shifts. But the worst part was the locker room. The locker room was downstairs in the basement. Customers never saw it. It was narrow, cramped, and smelled like wet concrete. The fluorescent light overhead flickered constantly, buzzing like a wasp nest. At first, it was just an uncomfortable space. Then it became something else. One night, I came down after closing to grab my bag. Everyone else had already left. I opened my locker and heard it, breathing. Slow, heavy, coming from behind the row of lockers. "Hello?" I called, my voice echoing. No answer, just the sound of someone exhaling, long and low, like they were trying to hide. I slammed my locker shut and ran upstairs. The next morning, I asked Carla, the same girl who once fended off Bathrobe Benny in Story 4, if she'd ever heard anything weird down there. She froze, then nodded slowly. Don't go down there alone," she said. Her face had gone pale. "Seriously, just don't," I pressed her, but she wouldn't explain. Weeks passed. More nights I heard it. Breathing, sometimes scratching like fingernails dragging down metal. Once I even swore I heard a wet whisper. "Hungry." Then came the night that ended it. We closed at 11:30. The others went out the back door, but I had to grab my wallet from my locker. My chest was already tight when I descended those basement steps, each creak of the wood sounding too loud. The locker room light buzzed, flickered, then dimmed. And in the reflection of the locker door, I saw it. Not a person. Not exactly. It looked like the Jollibee mascot, but wrong. Taller, stretched thin, the head too large, the smile warped into a jagged grin. Its black button eyes weren't plastic anymore. They were wet, alive, and they stared directly into mine through the reflection. I spun around, but nothing was there, just the empty row of lockers. My hands shook as I ripped open my locker. Inside wasn't my wallet. Inside was a small white paper bag, grease-stained, still warm. And inside that bag, chicken. At least I thought it was chicken at first, until I realized the bones weren't shaped right, too thin, too human. Something dripped from the bag onto my shoes, a dark red fluid, thick and metallic smelling. That's when the whisper came again, this time clear and close, right behind me. "Hungry." I bolted, dropped the bag, left my wallet, my shoes, everything. I didn't even clock out. I quit the next day by phone, told the manager I was sick. She didn't sound surprised, didn't even ask for details. Sometimes I wonder if she already knew. And sometimes, when I walk past that store at night, I see the basement light flicker through the cracks in the window. And for a second, just a second, I swear I see a giant round head in the glass, staring, smiling, waiting. When people think of Jollibee, they picture fried chicken, spaghetti, families laughing in the dining room, birthday parties in the play area. Nobody thinks about what happens when the doors lock at midnight and the store goes dark. That was my job. I was the overnight cleaner. It paid a little more than a daytime shift, and nobody else wanted the hours. All I had to do was mop the floors, scrub the fryers, restock supplies, and make sure everything was spotless before the breakfast crew arrived at 6 a.m. It sounded simple, but from my first night I knew something was off. The store didn't feel empty when the last customer left. It felt watched, like the walls themselves were listening. The manager gave me a tour before she left me alone. "Don't go into the basement unless you need supplies," she said casually. "The light down there flickers and people complain it makes them dizzy." She smiled, but her eyes avoided mine. At the time, I brushed it off. The little things. The first few nights were fine. Lonely, but fine. I listened to music in my earbuds and worked fast. But then the little things started. The fryers. That's where it began. One night, as I was scrubbing the counters, I heard the oil bubbling. I hadn't turned anything on. I went over and saw the fryer was lit, boiling as if someone had just dropped in a fresh batch of chicken joy. But the baskets were empty. When I unplugged the machine, it didn't stop. The oil still popped and hissed, and in the hiss I swear I heard something. Not words, just gurgling whispers like voices speaking underwater. I told myself I was tired. Another night, while I vacuumed the dining area, the machine suddenly shut off. I thought the plug had come loose. But when I looked up, I realized the humming sound was still there. Not coming from the vacuum, but from the dark children's play area in the corner. That sound, low, steady, mechanical, echoed through the tunnels and slides. I dropped the vacuum and left it humming while I took my break outside. The costume every Jollibee store has one, the big red mascot costume. At our location, it was locked in the supply closet, headpiece on top of the body like a giant doll stuffed into a corner. But on my 4th week, I noticed something strange. The first night, its arms were raised. Not high, just slightly, like someone had propped them that way. I told myself the last crew had shoved it in carelessly. The next night, the head was tilted toward the door, as if listening. By the 3rd night, the closet door was cracked open an inch, and the headpiece wasn't on the body anymore. It was pressed against the gap like a child peeking out. I slammed the door and shoved a mop bucket in front of it. The ball pit. But the worst night came a week later. It was 3:45 a.m. I was alone wiping down the dining tables. The store was silent except for the buzz of the fluorescent lights. That's when I noticed movement in the play area. The ball pit shifted, just slightly, like someone had climbed in. My first thought was ridiculous. Maybe a kid had been left behind. But the store had been closed for hours. I crept closer, and that's when I saw him. A man, sitting in the pit. His robe clung wetly to his pale body, soaking up the balls. His skin was sagging, almost gray. His hair was thin, plastered to his forehead, and his eyes. God, his eyes, bulging, glassy, too big for his face. He didn't move, didn't blink, just sat there, half buried in the pit, grinning. My whole body froze, my throat locked up. Then the overhead lights flickered, buzzing, and when they steadied again, the pit was empty. No man, no movement, just plastic balls sitting still. I backed away, heart pounding, and refused to look at that play area for the rest of the night. The locker room. When I clocked out the next morning, my manager stopped me. "You left your locker open," she said. "I didn't even go down there," I told her. She frowned. "Then how do you explain this?" She handed me a small paper bag, grease-stained, still warm. Inside were 2 nuggets, and something else. At first I thought it was another nugget, misshapen, burned. But when I picked it up, I realized it was a tiny hand. Shriveled, grayish, the fingers curled inward like claws. I dropped the bag and stumbled back. My manager didn't flinch. She just sighed and tossed the bag into the trash. "Don't work too hard," she said flatly, and walked away. The last night I didn't go back. I didn't pick up my last paycheck. I didn't even collect my things from the locker. But every time I walk past that Jollibee, I see the same thing. The play area lights, bright, even when the rest of the store is dark. And sometimes, if you stand on the sidewalk long enough, the ball pit shifts, just slightly, like something inside is still waiting. And once, only once, I swear I saw a pale arm push its way out. I worked the graveyard shift at Jollibee for almost 2 months before I realized there was more to the job than cleaning fryers and wiping tables. At first, the work was boring but steady. The restaurant closed to customers at midnight, but a skeleton crew stayed until sunrise. 2 cleaners, the night manager, and me at the register in case of late drive-through orders. We almost never got customers between 2 and 5 a.m., so we'd spend most of the time restocking, sweeping, or just trying not to fall asleep. But the thing about working at Jollibee is, There's always the basement. Every store has one. Customers don't know it's there, but employees do. Ours was narrow, unfinished concrete smelling of mold and fryer oil. The shelves down there held boxes of frozen patties, bags of flour, soda syrup barrels, and spare paper cups. No one liked going down alone. I thought it was just because it was dark and damp. Later, I found out the real reason. The manager's rules. Our night manager, Luke, was strict, almost military. He had 3 rules for the basement. 1. Never turn off the radio that sat on the shelf down there. Even if it's just static, let it play. 2. Don't stay more than 10 minutes. If you can't find what you need, come back later. 3. Never go down after 3:33 a.m. When I asked why, Luke's jaw tightened. Just don't, he said. It's company policy. I laughed, but Kendra, one of the other night workers, shot me a look that shut me up fast. The first incident. The first time I broke a rule, it wasn't on purpose. It was a Tuesday around 2:40 a.m. We were out of gravy mix. Luke told me to grab another box from the basement. I went down with my phone flashlight. The air was clammy, heavy. The old radio on the shelf was hissing faint static, low and steady. I pushed deeper, past the syrup barrels. That's when I noticed something. The concrete floor wasn't flat. It dipped just slightly like a shallow basin. At the very center was a stain. Dark, circular, bigger than any spill I'd ever seen. I crouched, touched it. It wasn't sticky, it wasn't dry either, it was damp, fresh. And when I stood back up, the radio had changed. No static, no music, just a voice. Low, male, whispering, not in English. I froze. My chest went tight, and then beneath the whisper I heard something else. Steps. Slow, heavy, coming closer. I grabbed the gravy box and bolted upstairs, nearly tripping on the stairs. Luke met me at the top. He didn't ask what happened. He just pushed the box from my arm, slammed the basement door shut, and locked it. "You heard it, didn't you?" he said quietly. I couldn't speak. I just nodded. The truth about Bathrobe Benny. There was a customer we all knew as Bathrobe Benny. Old man, stringy hair, always wearing a filthy off-white bathrobe no matter the weather. He came in multiple times a day, sometimes even at night. Always ordered chicken joy with extra gravy, always sat alone. Most employees avoided him, but he never caused trouble, just lingered. One night around 3 a.m., he came in again. The restaurant was dead quiet. He shuffled up to the counter, eyes glassy, and croaked, "Gravy." Just gravy. I poured a cup and slid it across. He didn't touch it. He just stared at me and said, "You've been downstairs." My blood ran cold. Before I could answer, Luke appeared, grabbed Benny by the arm, and whispered something I couldn't hear. Benny shuffled out, muttering, robe trailing like a dirty flag. Luke turned to me. "Next time he talks to you, don't answer. Pretend he isn't there." The basement ritual. It all came to a head one Friday. Around 3:20 a.m., Luke told me and Kendra to stay upstairs while he did inventory. I thought it was weird. He never did that himself. But curiosity got the better of me. I crept to the basement door, crouched, and pressed my ear against the wood. I heard the radio, not static, chanting. Dozens of voices layered together, low and droning, and Luke's voice louder, calling out words I couldn't understand. Then the screams, raw, wet, animal-like. I backed away, heart slamming, but the door creaked open just enough for me to see. Luke stood in the center of the basement basin, robe around his shoulders. Not his work uniform, a robe, just like Benny's. Around him, shapes moved. Not people, not exactly. They were hunched, pale things, skin hanging in loose folds, eyes bulging like they were too big for their skulls. And in Luke's hands was the mascot head, the giant Jollibee head. But its eyes weren't plastic anymore, they were wet, blinking, watching. The chanting grew louder, shaking the walls. The stain on the floor began to spread, dark liquid bubbling upward as if the ground itself was bleeding. I stumbled back, knocking over a chair. The noise echoed. Every head turned toward me. I don't remember running up the stairs. I don't remember grabbing my backpack. I only remember bursting out the employee exit into the night air, lungs burning. Kendra was already outside, pale, shaking. "You saw it too," she whispered. We didn't go back. Neither of us picked up our last checks. 2 days later, the Jollibee shut down for renovations. But when I drive past it now, even though it's boarded up, I swear I still see light glowing from the basement windows. And sometimes, late at night, I hear it on the radio. Not music, not static, chanting. I never liked closing shifts, but that's all I could get when I worked at Jollibee during my last year of high school. The job paid minimum wage, but it covered my phone bill and gave me a little pocket money. The store I worked at wasn't anything special, just a typical Jollibee along a busy highway. Families during the day, drunks at night. By midnight, the place was empty except for me, my co-worker Andy, and our manager Celeste. Celeste was strict but fair. She had one strange rule, though, something she made clear on my first night. "Never taste the gravy after midnight," she said. I thought she was joking. Who the hell sneaks gravy at work anyway? But she wasn't smiling. The first sign. It was a Thursday, about 1:30 a.m. Andy was in the back washing trays while I was mopping the lobby. The fryers had been shut off, the soda machine refilled, and everything was finally quiet. That's when I noticed the gravy pot. It was still simmering. We'd shut off the burners an hour earlier, but the steel container was rattling softly, steam curling into the air. I leaned closer. The gravy didn't look right. It was darker, thicker, almost red. A coppery smell filled my nose. Behind me, Andy said, "Don't touch it." His voice cracked. When I turned, his face was pale. Celeste said, "Don't taste it, don't even stir it." The customer who shouldn't have been there around 2 a.m., the bell above the door jingled. I jumped. Nobody comes in that late. A man shuffled inside. His clothes were torn, soaked through with something dark. He didn't order food. He just walked up to the counter, staring at me with hollow eyes. Finally, he said, "Gravy." I froze. He repeated it louder. "Gravy." Before I could answer, Celeste rushed out from the office. She didn't ask his order, didn't look surprised. She grabbed a paper cup, filled it from the simmering pot, and slid it across. The man lifted it with trembling hands and drank. Not sipped, drank. The red gravy ran down his chin, staining his shirt even darker. Then he left. No words. No receipt. When I looked at Celeste, her face was stone. "Go back to mopping," she said. The night everything broke. It happened 3 weeks later. Same shift, same routine. But when I came in, the smell hit me immediately. The gravy pot was already boiling, though no one had turned it on. The liquid inside bubbled thick and red, spitting flecks onto the counter. "Don't look at it," Celeste snapped. She looked exhausted, her eyes sunken as if she hadn't slept in days, but I couldn't stop. The surface of the gravy wasn't just bubbling, it was moving. Shapes swirled beneath the surface as if something was alive in there, trying to push through. And then the door opened. Not one customer this time. Dozens, all at once, silent, shuffling in single file, their clothes torn, their faces pale, their eyes blank. Each stepped up to the counter. Each whispered the same word. "Gravy." Celeste served them cup after cup, her hands shaking. Andy stood frozen by the sink, whispering prayers under his breath. But the line didn't end. The customers kept coming. They filled the lobby, shoulder to shoulder, staring at us with those lifeless eyes. The pot never emptied. No matter how many cups Celeste poured, the bubbling red liquid kept rising. And then one of the customers, the first man I'd seen weeks before, looked directly at me. His eyes rolled back, and in a voice that wasn't human, he said, "It's your turn." The gravy's secret. Before I could move, Celeste grabbed me by the arm, pulling me toward the back. "Don't listen. Don't speak to them," she hissed. We locked ourselves in the supply closet. My heart was slamming in my chest. "What the hell is happening?" I whispered. Celeste's hands trembled. "This franchise, it isn't just food. The gravy isn't ours. It's older, hungrier. They don't pay us to cook it, they pay us to feed it. Her voice cracked. And if we don't, it takes one of us instead. Suddenly, a pounding shook the closet door. Slow, heavy, and then a voice on the other side. "Gravy!" Andy screamed. The sound of the door cracking filled the air. The aftermath. I don't remember everything after that. I remember Celeste shoving me through the back exit. I remember running barefoot across the parking lot, not daring to look behind me. By morning, the store was empty. No Celeste, no Andy, no customers. Just me, sitting on the curb, shaking. A week later, corporate announced the branch was closed for maintenance issues. They gutted the inside, replaced everything. Fryers, soda machines, counters. But sometimes when I drive past at night, I still see a faint red glow in the windows. And if I roll my window down, I swear I can smell it. The metallic tang of hot, bubbling gravy.